Welcome, everybody, to our distance Reiki share. For those of you that are here live with us, for those of you that are listening later. All right, sorry about that. We had to pause because we had some technical things. Oh, you saw my dog in the background. Yes, my dog's in the office. She's about 1.5 years and still loves to chew on all the things. So you might have me say, okay, what do you have now? I have some toys in here, but it doesn't always work. So anyways, glad to be here as usual. I think as far as class announcements, Colleen is teaching with William. Again, this is it October or November, Colleen, in Japan on Mount Kurama, which is where Usui Sensei received the Reiki, the gift of Reiki. And so they are teaching a master and a Karuna class. You do have to sign up for that at reiki.org. But I wanted to let you know because the enrollment is now open. So you can go and check out more about that and go and sign up if you're feeling called to it. You can also email Colleen or William at center at reiki.org. And then Colleen's email is colleen@reikilifestyle.com. So yeah, if you have any questions or considering it and just kind of need to talk it out, definitely encourage you to send off an email. And then she's also going to be presenting at the Omega Institute in June, which is in Rhinebeck, New York. So that is the Wisdom of Reiki conference. So if you're interested in that, you can go to, I think it's eomega.com.
eomega.com. Also, reiki.org has a link to it because William is presenting there also.
This is what she had next. Just go through the inventory of everything that ends up in my dog's mouth this morning. Oh, man, will be at Omega.
Nice.
Great. So I think that's it for the announcements. We have some classes coming up in August, Animal Reiki, Human Reiki. So you can just go to reikilifestyle.com to find out.
And the Sedona Reiki retreat.
And Sedona Reiki retreat. Yeah.
You and I are both presenting there.
Yeah. I don't know what this was used for, but it does look like that. I forget. It has some use. So I think that's kind of it for the announcements. We are switching gears now. For the last month, we've been talking about business things. And so now we are going to be getting back to kind of our regularly scheduled Reiki programming, where we talk more about our mental, emotional, spiritual aspects of how Reiki really can help and benefit our lives, the healing, and then also the empowerment that Reiki can help with, because that is a really big part of Colleen and I and Danny's practice of really applied spirituality. How does it help with the big stuff? How does it help with the little stuff? How does it help not just when we're in our 1-hour Reiki session, but how does it actually benefit us in our daily lives, with ourselves, with our family and friends, with our community, and then also as much as we can with the world. So we're switching gears back into that. And I know that Colleen is going to start us off with Reiki and listening, which is a huge subject that we talk about. And I know for me, when I first started in partnership.
We'll be right back. I have to get some water.
Okay. When I started in partnership with Colleen, it was one of the first things that she kind of mentored me through. It's one of the things that we start in, I think it's month 3 or month 4 in our Next Step Reiki is listening. And listening comes down to a bunch of different ways of listening. We talk about it in our active listening, which is, kind of how we think of it, listening to others. But really, we also talk about it in a way of whole body listening. So listening with all parts of ourselves, with our human instincts, our inner guidance, our divine guidance, and then that active listening to others. And the way that she was teaching me about it was in that kind of active listening role. And I can tell you, as she will talk about it, is that it really is life-changing to learn these skills. And I'm so grateful in retrospect that we went through that that we went through that process, that I had that mentorship from her, because it not only changed my life in my personal life, but it changed my life in our business as well. And being partners with somebody in business, it's a crucial aspect to it. It's a crucial aspect in my marriage. It's a crucial aspect for me as a parent, as a friend, as a practitioner, and as a business owner. And I know the big reason of this too, that it was brought up recently, that it's up recently. I know she'll maybe talk a little bit about the astrological aspects of it. But my dad, her husband, just retired and is in the house all the time. And so they are going through the listening mentorship as well. So he was over here over the weekend, over at my house over the weekend, and we were talking, and he didn't quite adhere to his active listening skills that he's working with. And he pulled them up on his phone. He said, "Here, this is what I'm working with." And I said, "Hey, I've been through that too." So it is really a really important aspect, I would say, to life, and really so helpful. And I'm so grateful for it. So Colleen, if you want to go ahead and take the lead on this now, because it's not also just about us listening. It's also about, which I know we'll be talking about today, being listened to. And so many of us haven't been listened to in our life. And I know that's a part of what Colleen will be talking about today, and what our journey or meditation will be about today too. Are you ready, Colleen? Because I can keep going.
I am. Yeah, I think I am. If not, you can step in.
Okay.
So listening became a whole Reiki course of study for me that I took on as a personal understanding of being a good listener. And it started when my shamanic teacher, Jan Inglesmith, I was assisting her, an apprentice to her for a lot of years. And one day she and another one of my colleagues that many of you have met, she's the ceremonial singer with us often, is Lori Shansky, and she talks about this publicly too. So one day we were both assisting, and Jan just popped in and she said, "You two need to learn how to listen." It was like, just okay. So Lori and I decided that we would do a sweat lodge ceremony on listening, which was like, man, did it ever force us into immediate pursuit of understanding of what that even meant. So the listening skill builders were another start of it. I'm going to screen share and just show you. We're going to go more in depth into this on another week. But I wanted to show you these because this is what Robyn was talking about, that husband Robyn is working with. Wait, I'm at the Reiki Library on ReikiLifestyle.com, going to the free downloads. And here it is, both in English and in Spanish. And these are called the Listening Skill Builders. You can download the PDF. And they are active listening skills to develop in listening to others. So the journey not only took me of working with these skill builders back then, even, the journey took me from this piece of, oh, I need to learn to listen to others. I need to learn to listen to myself first, or with it at the same time. And then it took me on the healing journey of not having been listened to. So this is for any of those of you that are just listening. Again, we'll go over these on another week, but the skill builders are things such as, I wait for others to finish speaking before deciding how to reply. I resist the need to fill the silence. I willingly ask people to repeat themselves to clarify a point, etc. There's like 20 of them. So that actually started that whole process. And have to admit, I'm really fortunate that my husband, Robyn, because daughter Robyn and husband Robyn, but husband Robyn, we had a long discussion about it because he has had a construction company for 40 years. And that listening and how they communicate is very different than this whole Reiki household. And fortunately, he also has, all the Reiki training, and he did shamanic work with me. He was a water pourer for sweat lodges, etc. So very deep skills and a willingness to have the conversation and actually work with the skill builders. And me included. That's not just him. This is between us and developing our communication. So starting with, though, this week, what we want to do, and in the guided Reiki meditation and journey that Robyn is going to do, is really go into the healing aspect that Reiki provides for the areas in our life where we have not been listened to, healing them, but then also using Reiki to fill you back up with the ways you are heard and can be heard and can be listened to and have been listened to, even when you have felt unheard. So there's all kinds of effects that we have in our life that may not be verbal. They're simply how we are, who we are in the world. That is communication. That is also part of all of it, is how we walk through the world and the choices we make on that part of it. And then becoming a good listener, that we'll talk more in depth on another week, has been the freedom of my lifetime. And that's why I feel that it is probably the most important skill a Reiki practitioner can learn as a Reiki practitioner, but also that we learn as a person. It just makes such a difference. And when we when we become aware of that entirety of the listening topic, all the 360 view of how big of a subject it actually is also ultimately what it does is it teaches you how to hear you, how to listen to you. And out of it all, now I know that that is what I was looking for when I started on all of this journey and path with Reiki, with shamanism, my spirituality, mind management, all of the different things, personal growth, professional growth, all of it. And that ultimately it was about me being able to go inside and hear me. Because we are here as human beings. We have human nature, human consciousness, and we live in the planet of duality. So we have higher consciousness and lower consciousness all around us and within us. So for me, developing the skill on where am I engaging? What frequency am I engaging with? What's the higher frequency? What's the higher consciousness within me and around me? How do I discern it? How do I find it? Like, how do I get there? What's the very specific how to? So there's definitely the skill builders with it. There's the conscious skills of developing an inner awareness of listening. That also can be exchanged with the word perception. So listening isn't always sound. Listening is also perception. Listening is that, where is your attention? And so what we wanted to start with today is the effects of the places in your life where you have not been heard or listened to. And I would say the majority of us have some of that somewhere, from all the way from a pretty extreme level to maybe small levels. I definitely had a lot more of it in my childhood than I did in my marriage. So in my marriage has been, he's pretty good at wanting to listen. And of course, we've been married 49 years this year. So there's lots of hills and valleys in that conversation with it. But mostly overall, I'm in a pretty good place of being listened to, my kids and things like that too. So I do have an awareness of that benefit, but I also believe that so much of it comes because I got to the place where I learned how to listen to me. So, as any of you know that have not been heard or listened to in your life, that can be because of what we call your culturally created self. It can be part of your generation, your gender, your culture, where you live, your family of origin, your ancestral lineage. It can be because of your geographical location, and also come in from other lifetimes. Vows spoken previously, vows of silence, other lifetimes, ancestral histories, genetic memories, cellular memory. So getting to the how-to, for me, Reiki energy is the how-to. In addition, I do work with being conscious of it, making specific choices around it, and intentionally paying attention to everything that goes around about listening. And I've been doing that really since that sweat lodge, that fateful sweat lodge. I will tell you, that was a not necessarily recommended way to do this. Reiki is a lot more gentle. It's one of the reasons I love Reiki. It is very gentle about these things. So, as you know, experiences of not being heard can happen in your childhood. It can leave you feeling isolated, not just unheard, but I think the biggest thing is that it makes it hard to hear yourself. Ultimately, that's to me, the biggest injury, is that it invalidates you and makes it difficult to hear yourself. You can have experiences that from peers. You can have it from family members. You can have it from the educational system you were brought in. I do see a big difference occurring in some of these younger generations and the children and the way they're raising them, is there is a lot more emphasis on both the parent listening and the child having the right to speak. And another tool that I really learned with too, I'm just thinking out loud, I'm going to put that in maybe a future, one of the future weeks, because I don't have it ready for today. But one of the main tools that I learned to use was a talking stick. And I think that's a really valuable tool for kids, raising kids with it. That they have the ability to go to something, to touch it, pick it up and say, I need to be listened to. And that is the signal that everybody is listening. One of the things I learned as a parent, for any of you with preteens or teenagers, you may already know this, but in case you don't, they talk at 11 o'clock at night. If you really want to know what's going on in their life, You have to stay up. I remember, and I'm an early to bed person. I'm like, I'm in bed by 8:30, and my son was notorious for 11 o'clock. You awake? Like, yeah, because that was the time he was willing to talk. During the day, how'd your day go? Fun, fine. And it was fine. So, just a parenting tip. Anyway, back to being unheard. As a child, I think there's all different experiences of that. As an adult, there's lots of experiences of it. The injury that it can cause is feeling invisible, getting your visibility back. I see that so commonly as a practitioner. And we've done distance Reiki shares on that. You can go back on our YouTube channel and look at it. We also did one on gaslighting. And that is another area where we can feel unheard, is when we experience gaslighting. And if I remember right, that topic happened in the medical system, where people were, it wasn't, I didn't start out thinking, oh, we're going to talk about gaslighting in the medical system, but that's kind of the direction that it went to, another place of feeling unheard, and unseen and invalidated. Isolation. It's like it's very difficult to just be in your own thoughts without any expression of it. Frustration and anger can build up, and it can also create an experience of saying things the way you didn't intend to say them. It can cause conflict because suddenly things burst out because you're finally just at that point of trying to be heard. You can tell I've experienced this. Having to watch the feelings inside go up and like, okay, Reiki on, to help with that all feels like. Being misunderstood. A lot of times not being listened to is the experience of being misunderstood, and that can happen. And it increases stress and anxiety when it's difficult to be heard, when it's difficult to find the outlet for being heard, the words to say, to communicate, and create internal anxiety. It can really go, gosh, the organ is going right out of my head. I'll think of it in a minute. Resentment, feeling unloved or uncared for, can also create lack of motivation. And for me, one of the biggest ones is the communication breakdown. And one of the things that can happen with that is being unheard causes the inability to hear yourself, and it also causes the inability to hear the other. Because when somebody isn't listening to you, it's hard to listen to them as well. So you can see how that brings in the communication breakdown. So those are some of the challenges of not being heard. And I think it's an important topic. And some days I'm like, oh God, we bring up that. And now it kind of suddenly brings it to our awareness. But here's the piece of it is, again, what tools do you have to make that difference for you? It's not about somebody else. Right now, ultimately, what Reiki teaches us is that it all comes back in to self. So, what are the things we can do with Reiki? Well, one of the things we're going to do today is Robyn's actually going to do a guided meditation Reiki journey about the subject. So, it can be from an external source. Of course, you can use self Reiki and do self empowerment and be aware that, oh, this is a whole topic I'm interested in, and actually asking for it to come in from that higher perspective where we're now moving into, Reiki entrains us to a higher perspective. So now if you are listening about not being listened to, about healing that, it is a lot easier and more gentle to go into the higher frequencies to experience that listening, experience that healing that can happen where Reiki is such a higher frequency that it actually entrains you to that other perspective so that this whole process is actually brings you to benefit. It brings you to that personal growth. It takes it out of the, I don't know what to do to, oh, look at this is taking me, bringing me into solutions. It's bringing me into resourcefulness. It's taking me to this next level. So some of the things that we can use Reiki for is throat and heart chakra activation. You can do self Reiki with that, even in times when perhaps you need to do this on the fly. And maybe you can't actually stop and put your hand on your throat and your heart, but on the fly, you could use Reiki. And in this moment when you really need to be heard, going back to a medical situation, either physically activating Reiki with your throat and your heart. Sometimes your gut is a big piece of it. So probably often enough. But you can think it and you can do it on the fly. So if you are in a moment where suddenly it's like, boy, I am struggling here to be heard, to get through this, taking me back into all the times that I wasn't heard. If you need that help, Reiki works on the fly. So that means you can think it, you can say it, you can take action with it, you can physically do meditations, you can do lengths of time about the subject, but you can also bring it in for a moment, because Reiki is not requiring you to make sure, okay, now I've done 10 minutes of throat and heart chakra activation, so maybe now Reiki will help me. That does give you another experience of how Reiki does come in and do that. Like I can even feel it right now that it's traveling through my throat, my heart, and going right into my solar plexus for the activation. But let's say it would be really weird for me to stop and do this. I can think it. But I also love doing it for lengths of time. So both work. Setting an intention to understand about it. And I do invite you to set your intentions for this to be like a really positive experience of this understanding of the value of listening, of the value of expanding your perception, and invite that to be a gentle, beautiful process and experience. And for me, it doesn't mean when I ask for that I'm only going to have beautiful experiences of the healing that I need to go through. Sometimes it can be like, that was a big one. But inviting Reiki to come in and the energy of it to come in, on the Center for Reiki Research the other day, Justin Stein was talking about calling it a spiritual therapy, like really letting it come in to go to that deep part of you that does have that, self understanding, self knowing, your ability to hear you. And the other thing that Reiki can help you do is learn how to listen to your inner voice and how to hear you. So we're going to go into depth in that in a whole week also. So for the next 3 weeks, we're specifically talking about listening and starting today with hearing yourself. So it's a big topic. I did write an article about it years ago when all of this started, called Listening with Reiki. It's also on our website, and so are those skill builders. So we try to provide the resources. And we also have quite a bit of this topic on YouTube. And it's one of the number one skills that we teach in our advanced training classes, Next Step Reiki. Those are a 3-year course, and it's a repeated topic throughout all 3 levels, because I really feel that it was so life-changing for me, and also as a Reiki practitioner, particularly animal Reiki, that ability is really beneficial. So I want to make sure that I leave time for Robyn with her invocation. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you now, Robyn. I
Great.
feel like the energy of it is, you can have, you guys already, if you haven't been heard in your life, you already know what I'm talking about. So now we need to get to the energy that can come in and really release the injury and bring in the benefit, bring in that power within you. So, okay.
Great. Thank you.